Alright folks, what's the crack? Welcome back to Meet the Members, where we have the chance to get to know some of the amazing Ormo Bass members, the people who call this incredible building home, who work here day in, day out for all of their business needs. We're here with the wonderful Anna Leckey.
Hello.
Lovely to see you.
Nice to see you.
And just going to have a wee chance to have a chat with Anna and get to know a bit more about her. So what I love about you is you, in your bio that you sent in, you had like a word that I didn't really know. Okay. And I intentionally didn't look for the definition because I was like, this is going to be where I start. Okay. So you describe yourself, and if I butcher the pronunciation, please correct me.
That's okay.
A multi-hyphanate creative?
Yes.
Is that right. What the word was?
Yeah, multi-hyphanate. Yeah.
Okay, so tell us what that is.
Well, actually, I came across it in a book called The Multi-Hyphanate a few years ago. And it was brilliant because it just allowed me to accept that I just do lots of different things and that I can be this and this and this and this at the same time, instead of having to be one thing that has lots of different side hustles as such. So yeah.
It's a little bit like very often, like I'll be reading stuff, like a whole range of stuff, and you read it and there's just that moment of like extreme identification where you're like, I thought I was the only one, finally I've like found my people, or I've like found like a term that actually makes sense for me.
Absolutely.
So I mean, it's interesting because I would say I relate to you slightly. I would say I'm a little further along the spectrum where I kind of need to have more of one thing and then side hustles, but throughout my whole life it's always been like, for flip's sake, would you just pick one thing?
And I don't want to pick one thing.
Yeah, that's
I like
the thing.
all of them, sometimes a little bit more than others, but it always seems to balance out eventually.
Yeah.
I don't want to choose which baby I want.
Because I think like society, like whether it's the school kind of factory system or whatever it is, like they do kind of push you down more of like a specialist road rather than like a generalist. Yeah. And it's interesting because like we did a thing about a local woman here called Lillian Bland from the 1800s, and she like was Victorian era, and she designed and built and flew her own airplane. Wow. But she was also like a photographer and an artist and really into science and really into birds and all this other stuff. But the kind of polymath, like the Leonardo da Vinci, isn't really, there's not a strong pathway for people like that.
Yeah, I think that's the challenging thing I sometimes think with doing what I do, is that being like a social entrepreneur as well, there's definitely, I have dreams, I have visions for what I want all of these little individual companies to be. But because nobody's done them the way that I've done them, there's no one mentor that I can learn from, which is sometimes quite challenging.
So you need to find like a different mentor for each kind of project almost.
Or just a 40-year-old version of myself. Yeah,
that's amazing.
Yeah.
Who was it? He wrote that thing about the library. I don't know, some fancy like real literary writer. He had this thing where he wrote a short story about meeting the 80-year-old version of himself on a bench. Yeah. And I've heard like people doing a thing where they basically sit down with a blank piece of paper and they imagine what the 80-year-old version of themselves, what advice they would give to them. And it's supposed to be very insightful.
You do that on your podcast, don't you?
Yeah. But it's interesting, like it's interesting to see, because a lot of the advice you can give yourself is sometimes actually pretty strong. So how do you divide your time? Like, do you have like a system? Do you go with the flow? Is it like kind of free fall? Tell me about that.
Going with the flow / free fall / some system. So
perfect. All of the above.
All of the above. Yeah, a challenging Google Calendar. It's color coded.
Do you color code?
Oh yes, I have.
I've just started color coding. So do you color code based on project, or what do you color code based on?
Based on job. So I'm a hot yoga teacher. I work at Hot Yoga Belfast. So all my hot yoga is purple. Yeah. I have a company called Still I Rise Diversity Storytelling, which I co-founded with.
Wait, let's do quick fire. Okay. What's your favorite yoga pose?
Ooh, at the moment it's, I'm gonna say the name wrong, but it's flying splits. I'm not gonna say it. Just try this answer because I'm gonna get it wrong. But flying splits is my favorite at the moment, and I'm doing a workshop actually on Sunday, and my plan is to teach everybody how to do it.
And is that one leg on the ground and then one leg in the air?
No, it's both legs in the air.
What?
With one hip balancing on your shoulder.
Oh jeez Louise. So it's advanced yoga.
It's fun.
I like
it's
that.
It's fun. It's not advanced.
I like
it's
that.
It's just fun.
Anna does bi-weekly yoga classes here in the Bath, so for all the members, we go on Wednesday and we have an absolute fab time. Okay. So you were talking about Still I Rise. Let's go.
So Still I Rise Diversity Storytelling, I set up with my co-founder Orla McKeating, and we read storybooks that have great representation in them of lots of different people from all over the world, and cultures and different topics. So we read stories about like LGBT issues or family structures or race and skin and neurodiversity. We read stories about dyslexia and ADHD, which is great. So it's about trying to make quite big conversations very simple with children, so as they don't have, I suppose what I grew up with anyway was like my parents whispering words that weren't necessarily bad words. They just didn't know what to say. As soon as they whisper the word, you're like, oh gosh,
dyslexia.
Yeah, stigmatized instantly, you know what I mean? So I think and I think actually talking about that, I could go on a ramble about that. I'm dyslexic as well, and I only in the last sort of 4 years really accepted it and really understood it and really enjoyed being dyslexic. And I think that's why I'm quite good at doing lots of different things, because I get bored pretty fast, and my brain works in a different way that would probably drive other people bonkers.
I was listening to something the other day, and they were saying that like they have their belief is that each of the different personalities, and they actually use the word personality disorders, but you know, you can give or take that as you please, like actually have a very important role in society, and each of them have like unique characteristics that kind of serve the tribe. And that, you know, what they said about dyslexia is that it gives people the ability to do lots of different things. You know, the shadow side is that perhaps someone's easily distracted, but like the sun side of that is that, well, here's someone who can manage lots of different things. Yeah, really cool. So Still I Rise,
yes,
you are basically curating storybooks that already exist out there.
Yes.
And you're literally bringing them to the fore, and it's like a platform that allows you to focus on underrepresented issues. You're giving a voice to these books.
Exactly, to make sure every child feels seen and heard is our main thing. That every child sees themselves represented in a storybook. Whether that's a storybook about living at mum's and living at dad's, because that was a storybook that was around whenever I was a kid. Or if it's a storybook where the main character is wearing a hijab and is a princess. So it's just about trying to let every child see themselves identified. And we have written a couple of books. We worked with voices of the young people in the care system, and we wrote the storybook that they wanted to tell, which was for grown-ups in school to stop saying give this note to mum and dad at home. They were like, could you just say give it to the grown-ups, because we don't live with mum and dad. So it's just about trying to be a bit more inclusive with all of our language. A lot of learning in it, a lot of unlearning, and a lot of catching myself saying words all the time and then having to retrace. But I think that unlearning is important, because then if I'm teaching the children, they won't have to do all that unlearning. They won't have to bite their tongue and think about the other word. That's what Still I Rise is.
I was listening to just a fanboy moment. I was listening to a podcast interview with Natalie Portman, and she's just brought out like something like, it's called like Natalie Portman's Fables for Children, but they're kind of classic Aesop fables, like Tortoise and the Hare and all that sort of stuff. But her big thing is that she changes the gender of the animals. And it actually really helped me, because we just had a daughter, and her big thing was anytime there's an animal in a book, it's always referred to as a he. Or if you see a dog in the wild, you know, you're like, oh, isn't he so cute? Or if you see a cow, it's like, isn't he so funny? And her thing was just like,
cows are probably girls.
Yeah, exactly. Like all the cows you see by definition are female. So it's just like a small little unlearning, as you said, that I think has a really interesting impact. Is there any issues that you've had a hard time trying to find representation for? I know there's a lot of authors out there in the world and a lot of smaller projects, but where do you think is the most underrepresented area that you've kind of focused on so far?
I think actually the more the books come, the more we're able to curate sessions. We might use 5 or 6 books on one topic, and after we find one, there's a lot more coming out now. Now the main issue was, I think the stats are from a couple of years ago, and I'm not going to get the exact percentage right, but most storybooks had animals as the main character, and if it wasn't an animal, it was a white child was the main character, and it was something like 8%. I think at the moment it's 8%, but 2 years ago it was like 3.5% of storybooks had ethnic minority characters as the main character. So awful. But now there's a lot more. But my issue is that there's a lot of storybooks where animals are the main character. And yes, the fables might be great, and it's great that they're playing with the biases of the gender. That's brilliant. But there's still too many books about animals. I'm like, no, we should just do more books about actual children, because then children can see themselves represented and they know that they can be whatever they want to be.
And I mean, the origin of Aesop, or I suppose the continuation of Aesop, has some problematic issues of these were really just used to like in authoritarian ways to control children by their parents.
Yeah, be scared of the boogie monsters.
Yeah,
go to bed early.
exactly. Yeah, toe the party line. Like, don't vote against what we say. Okay.
Cool.
Let's go.
Other
What else?
job, so theatre company. So Still I Rise is a branch off my Threes theatre company, which I founded 4 years ago now, and I'm the artistic director and producer. I have a core team of people that I work with whenever we're making the work, because you can't make work by yourself, especially whenever it's a theatre show. Even a one-woman show, you can do it by yourself. And we make site-specific and immersive theatre. So it's theatre in unexpected places, and more recently in the last 2 years we've tackled some more challenging conversations with our work. We did a show with the Simon community, walking the streets talking about homelessness, and you wore headphones and walked around the street and experienced a day in the life of somebody else. So that's sort of the stuff that I'm interested in, trying to use theatre to let people like eavesdrop almost. Like we've done shows in Villa Hotel, we did a couple of shows in the Mac, we've done a show in the Lyric, but never actually using the theatre space itself, more just the places around the outside. We did a show with TransLink there recently. I was going to
say, tell us about the bus.
So the bus show, which we recorded in your lovely your lovely podcasting suite, which is great. So we were sponsored by TransLink and Eastside Arts Festival and Arts and Business to do a show in their new hydrogen bus. Totally up my street, all ego. We'll get into that brilliant. In a second. But yeah, so we had to come up with an idea of how to show off and showcase this bus during COVID, when we couldn't have a lot of people on the bus. So we parked the bus in Victoria Park, and we had 3 actor-writers write their story, and then they were secret headphones. Maybe I shouldn't have said that. And then the audience came on and sat on the bus and wore some headphones and essentially listened to the internal thoughts of just people sitting on the bus. Our bus didn't go anywhere, but we did have a bubble machine, so bubbles flew past. So it kind of felt like the bus was
100%. It was flying down the highway.
Which was great. And
why did I say highway?
I don't know. Do we have any highways? We might do.
The Autobahn.
Yeah. So no, it was great. It was very well received. It was very Belfast, and there was a couple of product placements about environmentalism inside it, which was great.
Brilliant.
And we really enjoyed it as a project. So that's the sort of work that we do. So collaborative projects most of the time with different organisations.
What colour is Three's company on your calendar?
Ooh, it is pink.
Perfect.
Yeah, it's pink. Still I Rise is yellow. Yoga is purple.
Why purple?
So
I use purple. This is so bad. I use purple in my Google Calendar for the things that make me money.
Okay. I suppose the yoga is my most stable job. So maybe there's something there. I don't know.
I mean,
it's also just fun.
It's complete nonsense.
I get to be in a hot room and teach people how to move. It's great fun.
I've never done hot yoga, and I'm a massive fan of the sauna, so I feel like it would be up my street. Yeah.
You would probably love it. Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then
what's
my
next
job, which is only just registered, is I'm the founder / CEO. I don't know what's called.
Just earn it. Claim it.
Tiny House Community NI.
Awesome.
So I live in a glamping pod, as you know. When I came across your podcast the first time, how I ended up in here was by listening to your podcast, because I didn't have a TV, so I just listened to a lot of podcasts.
I love the no TV life. That's the way to do it.
So I've been living in the pod for about a year, and the plan is to build a community, to get a piece of land in Belfast, maybe a disused car park or something, and to place tiny houses on it, and to have a community centre and a community garden, and to allow people with the opportunity to live a more sustainable way.
That's awesome.
That's the plan.
Just recently I've been listening to a lot of stuff about the living communities in Denmark.
Okay, yeah.
And I'm just so attracted to that.
I know, it's
I'm
class.
like, dude, that level of community is just so appealing.
Especially with a young child.
Especially with the young,
Free
get the village to raise the kid. Come on, let's go.
Yeah, that would be good.
So expectation versus reality after living in the pod for a year. Because it's tiny houses are very, very Pinterest.
Yeah, they are.
And people have a certain aesthetic in their head of what their life's going to be like. And let's be honest, there are challenges of living in such a small space.
There are challenges living in, my pod is 14.5 square meters, and I wish I had that other half square meter. But it's a part of
So expectation versus reality in the positive and in the negative. We'll go for that. Or should I say, success and challenge.
Okay, challenges, I think in terms of the challenges, to be honest, I don't feel like I've sacrificed anything.
Yeah.
So what I would like, challenging wise, is I'd like a slightly larger sofa that I could properly chill out on. My dog now takes up most of the sofa, and it's hard for us to share it.
Take it in turns.
I know, it's really annoying because it's only like big enough for one person, but it's got storage underneath it, so it's so useful. And then I don't have a shower in the pod. That's something that people are always interested in. So I shower at the yoga studio where I teach, and I teach 6 days a week.
Makes sense.
I'm there 6 days.
Man, you could shower in a bath if you want
exactly,
to.
I could.
You know.
There are showers
Sure.
here,
I mean, that's the purpose of this building. It was built when there was no indoor plumbing.
There we go.
I mean, you gotta
Right
outsource
here.
this stuff to society. I mean, come on.
So that was something to get used to, and I suppose like maybe there's like little sacrifices that I make that like I don't go for like walks in the rain. I don't run anyway, so I'm not missing out on running. But because then I'd have to go to shower. You know what I mean? So if I'm doing that, I'll go and then I'll go to the studio or whatever, which is grand. And Danielle, who runs the studio, is great for letting me use it as my bathroom, which is fab.
Awesome.
And then what else? The kitchen's pretty small, but everything's pretty small, and
it's in the name, isn't it?
It's the first time I've lived by myself, so I've been there for a year.
Oh, perfect.
And it's been really, really lovely to just like to get to know me. My living situation before was lovely with my flatmate and stuff, but it's I don't know, it's nice. It's just
That's
me.
cool.
I've gathered quite a lot of animals. So I have the cat that I moved in with, Sabrina. She came with me. Then shortly after, I got a few chickens. We've maybe lost a few to the foxes and
Those darn foxes.
to a local dog, but now we have 12 and we have a pen and they're all going strong.
Good.
They've stopped laying though because of the winter, but we'll come back to that. And then we have a puppy. So there's now quite a few animals within my little pod area.
I'm gonna be brutally honest with you. I did not know that like hens can stop laying.
Well, they don't lay in the winter because unless
where do all our eggs come from?
They come from sheds with artificial light.
With heat in it.
Yeah, artificial.
Oh, is it light or is it heat?
I think it's artificial light. I think it's that red light. I think that still simulates the same thing because they wouldn't want their chicks. This is my belief. They wouldn't want their chicks to be born in the winter because they probably wouldn't survive.
Genius.
So they stop laying.
I mean, that's a pretty strong case for like, you know, how people talk about like like sad and like feeling blue in the winter. Like
just no more eggs.
Hens are literally like changing their biology during the winter time because of light.
Yeah, I know. And they're grumpy. Sometimes they don't go to bed. Sometimes it gets really dark, and I've got like an automatic chicken door, which is great. But they won't go to bed because they're like, no, I want to be outside, and I'm like, guys, it's dark. So sometimes I have to put them in by hand, which is quite annoying. So, but they're fun. They are fun to have.
Cool.
Yeah.
Very cool.
And the dream for the tiny house community would be that I would bring some chickens with me, and my dog and my cat, obviously.
I mean, it makes sense to have some sort of community
animals
agricultural farm project.
I think so.
You know,
vibes.
That's the word. That is literally the word I was looking for. Yeah.
One other challenge about the tiny house is maybe the domed roof is lovely. So out of because my glamping pod.
This bit here, or
it's not. It's more just the curved structure of it.
Okay.
There's less usable space with that.
Okay.
So yeah. So that's it. So there's only so many walls I can hang pictures on.
In the future, would you go for square and then a pointy roof?
I think square and like an apex. Is that what that's called? An apex roof. That's like on slant.
Gotcha.
Yeah, because then you wouldn't have that issue bang your head.
Yeah.
So that's what I want, and I'd love a loft bedroom. So I could separate my sleeping area from my kitchen area. Mostly because the cat's paws go all over the bed.
Yeah. But I mean, you just jumped in like glamping pod, like
renovated it.
Relatively easy to get.
Mm-hmm.
You know, instead of like, because most people are like, you know, I want a tiny house, and then they're like, the one that they want is like $100,000.
Is expensive.
Do you know what I mean? And so it was like, instead of then it's like saying, oh, someday, I love how you were like, no, we can do this, and then we can figure it out.
I think that's my favorite saying, is just leap and then it'll appear. Just like buy the pod and then you'll find somewhere to put the pod.
Yeah. Where am I going to put this thing?
So it's all worked out. Like it's all worked out for me.
Very cool.
It's meant that I can now start Tiny House Community and I with this like belief in, and I can talk to like city councillors and politicians and stuff about why I believe that we should have a community like this, from the well-being aspects of myself. You know, I can be honest about this is the freedom that it's given me, like financial stability during COVID. My rent's minimal and I own the pod, so it allows me to be that multi-hyphanate to do all the things that I want to do because it's just me and my income doesn't need to be huge.
Yeah, and you know, we've talked before about like who could use this, you know, students, awesome for students, like young people who don't want to have a mortgage that they trip over every single month, you know, creatives, like entrepreneurs starting off, it's just genius, you know.
And the biggest group of people that are interested in it, that have contacted me anyway, are single women, just people, independent women who are looking to live alone but still want to have connection.
Alone, pause, together.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because that community aspect, it's probably easier to know your neighbours whenever you're, because you would be outside quite a lot as well with the tiny house as well.
And you become slightly reliant on people. You know, like I'm very reliant on the yoga studio that I teach at, in a nice way.
Which is no bad thing.
It's not.
We've become too independent, I would say, and that's maybe a weird thing to say, but
no, I think so. And like I get my washing done by a dry cleaners in the Lismore Road.
Nice.
And the 1 week that I wasn't in, just because I think it was like mid-COVID and like everything had closed and I was just like being sad at home. Here wasn't open, and he phoned me and was like, "Hey, I haven't seen you this week. What's going on?"
Unbelievable.
And I'm like, "That's so nice. I didn't know you 8 months ago, you know, and now you know that you see me twice a week or once a week."
So good.
It's just those little connections that are actually so important.
Yeah.
So important.
So, what's the benefit of the Ormo Bass for you? Like, why does this place work for you? Why have you stayed?
Why have I stayed?
Yeah.
Almost a year. I think it could have been.
That's
almost
mad.
a year now. Obviously, it's been open and closed with the COVID and stuff, but for the most part, it's been open. I think for me, I was looking for the community. I'm 28, and it's hard to make friends when you're older.
I'm 26. It's a weird stage of life.
Hard.
Yeah.
So I wanted to make more friends, and because I work in the arts, as much as I love the theatre industry, it's a small industry, and the fight for funding, because the Arts Council, in my opinion, is not giving us enough money, and to constantly have to prove yourself, it can be quite a harsh industry, because they're just fighting for survival. We're all just fighting for survival, and I'm lucky in the fact that it's not my full-time job, because it wouldn't right now it wouldn't work. So I wanted to be around more business-minded people, to see what I could learn and steal from them, essentially. And I've enjoyed it. I've made some great friends, and it's nice. And the Ormo Bass is it's such like an elegant place to work.
I know,
like,
it's so bougie, isn't it?
It makes you just value yourself as soon as you walk through the door.
Yeah.
And then I tell people I work in the theatre industry, and I've like got a couple of startups, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, that's amazing," and I'm like, "You think so?" I don't know what it is. Like, it's just, you feel great.
Would you like to come see my place of work?
Yeah, that's great. Feel great doing meetings or like have another co-worker or whatever. It feels great to have people in. I've just enjoyed it. I've enjoyed I work at the big co-working desk, and I've enjoyed chatting to people, and then that moment of being like, I'm gonna put my headphones back on because I actually need to do work, and then taking them off to have conversations.
The headphones are like the do not disturb sign around here.
Essentially. But it's quite nice. You can always see somebody if they're getting a wee bit agitated and they're just sort of like making eye contact, and you're just like, I just need to finish this email, and then talk to you. But it's nice, because otherwise, especially towards the end of COVID, like last year,
you get lonely as
whenever I was
hell.
working at home, I just worked non-stop, and I'm an all or nothing person, and I would just work until, if I didn't have something like yoga to pull me away, it's like always in the calendar in purple, and I wouldn't come away. I would just stay working all the time. The dog's been good for that, but it's hard. So no, I love it here. It's nice, it's fun, it's friendly, it's bougie.
It's so bougie. Like,
so
you walk
bougie.
in and you're like, I'm gonna put my shirt on
Everything
today.
looks like it's from Oliver Bonus.
Yeah. And you're like, do you know what? I'm gonna stand up straight and I'm gonna get a latte as well and have a business meeting right now. It's like, whoa.
It's lovely.
Final question.
Yes.
Let's go. What will I go for? Yeah, I'll go for this. Like, what advice would you give to Anna before she got into the world of business?
Oh, I don't know.
Is that 4 years, or what are we talking here?
Straight out of uni, I suppose. I've been a freelancer since straight out of uni.
Nice.
And for me, that's my business career. I recently started a master's at Ulster in business. So
Checks
I know
out.
nothing, but I'm learning.
Yeah.
What would I have told? That you can do it, and there are going to be days that you don't think you can, but that you can do it. And I think sometimes I still rely so much on collaboration, because I think there's so many brilliant things that come from that. But I don't know, I was maybe going to say something along the lines of like, it would, like, don't let people tell you no, but I don't let people tell me no anyway. I'm just like, nah, I'm going to do it.
You're like, that was never an issue for me.
My brother definitely told me not to move into the pod, and that's not what happened.
Brilliant.
So I don't know, just to have a bit more confidence in myself earlier would have been nicer. And to stand up for myself a bit more. I think more recently I'm having more conversations that are a bit challenging with people that I'm working with, and I could have had those earlier, because they're not actually as scary as you think they're going to be.
Totally. That's good advice.
Thanks.
Lovely talking to you. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
We're glad you're here. And thank you for coming along for the ride. And if you'd like to check out more episodes in this series, you go on the Omar Bass webpage, meet the members, check out other resident stories. And if you would like to join us here to make Omar Bass your place of work, we'd love to have you. And there's a wee contact form where you can make that happen, get a free tour, come get a cup of coffee, and see what's happening with your own physical in-person eyes. Thanks so much. Have a good day.